Our cars will break down, and when they do, the repair bill can be devastating. Not anymore. You need Protect My Car. Whether it's a car, truck, or SUV, you can stop paying expensive repair bills. Call Protect My Car at 800-392-8795 now to see if you could qualify. Just tell us the make and model and get an instant quote right over the phone and get coverage today. For cars between 2008 and newer, expensive repairs for the engine, transmission, and much more can become a thing of the past. Call Protect My Car at 800-392-8795 now before your next repair bill hits. For total protection of your car, truck, or SUV and less repair bills, plus free oil changes, free tire rotations, and free roadside assistance. Just call 800-392-8795 now. Protect your car and your wallet. Call 800-392-8795. Paid for by Protect My Car. Restrictions may apply. Plans and costs for coverage may vary.
Joining us on the Beacon Plumbing Hotline right now, he is going to be with us each and every week. Brought to you by our good friends at No Lie Brewing, No Lie Brew House out there in Spokane, Washington, located on the Spokane River. In fact, I will be there, Kevin, Friday at 1 o'clock p.m.
You're going to be 3 sheets to the wind. You're not even going to know what day it is, but you know what time it's going to be. If you were at Buddy's, it'd be 4:20.
It would be at 4:20, but I'm going to be there on Friday. And no, I will not be because I got to head out to Whitworth University afterwards for the big football game after. And, tailgating there is a little different than
you want to be able to see 56 if he's out there.
I would like to see that. If he, well, he'll be on the sideline at least, if nothing else. All right. Steve Palazzolo joins us, Pro Football Focus right now. How are you, my friend?
Doing great. Thanks for having me back, of course.
I appreciate it. We're looking forward to these throughout the year as well. Boy, cut down day. That's got to be just a quick housekeeping thing for you guys. That's got to be a hell of a day for you in terms of like moving guys' names around all over the place.
Yeah, we have a full team of guys, keeping track of the roster moves and, putting them on the website, but just making sure our internal depth charts and all that stuff are updated. Yeah, a lot of moving parts, and I don't like guys getting cut. I like the fact that teams can be smart, though, and pick some people up or continue their team-building efforts. But it's good to see the season in sight now.
Steve, I want to kind of go through and hit on some guys. And if people were looking at PFF.com right now on the roster, I'm assuming I'm looking at last year's numbers, right? I'm looking at all these like Russell Wilson, 6 of 38. These are all last year's numbers I'm looking at.
Yeah, if we're doing any sort of ranking or anything like that, it's based off last year's.
Okay. Let me start with Sidney Jones, because that was the one that kind of, when they made a move and picked up Sidney Jones, it surprised me because from what I had read, he didn't have a good year last year. And yet I look at the numbers for PFF, and his coverage grade's a 71.3. That's a good grade. His overall grade was a 68.1. Again, pretty solid player. I was surprised if based on your numbers, that's a sneaky nice pickup for Seattle.
Yeah, I think so, because it's one of those. He's one of those players. He gave up a few big plays, but early on, the Jaguars' cornerbacks were really bad for much of last year. And every time you watch them play, it'd be like, oh, Sidney Jones, he's making plays. He wasn't in a great situation where they had a great pass rush or anything like that. And he's also a guy. A lot of times the pedigree, the draft pedigree sticks with players, right or wrong, it sticks with them. But he was a second rounder who just got off to a slow start with injuries and all sorts of stuff, kind of slowing his career down at the beginning. But he's had his best 2 years, the last 2 seasons. So when you talk about one of those low risk, high upside type of moves, Sidney Jones heading into year 5 in his career, I like it. Again, it doesn't mean he's Richard Sherman or anything on the outside. It just means, hey, could be something here, because he's definitely turned things around after a really slow start in his career.
Well, as we look at Seattle's roster, we talked about this in the offseason. DJ Reed, now they flip him over to the left side, to the left corner. That basically makes him kind of your number one cornerback in a lot of ways. And then it's, whether it's Jones, Witherspoon, Flowers, whoever ends up being on that right side, I assume, first of all, Jones, he's a boundary corner, right? We're not looking at him in the slot.
Yeah, he's definitely best on the outside for sure.
Witherspoon last year hasn't looked great in the preseason, but I don't know. I mean, judging by what I just watched in this preseason, I don't know what you can judge. But to be honest with you, I mean, it was just an absolute gong show with what teams are doing. But Witherspoon, you had him rated as an 80.9 in coverage, limited snaps last season. I think he's the guy. I think he's the guy they're going to go with to start. But give me a little thought on Ahkello Witherspoon.
Yeah, so corner is definitely one of those positions where you need to take as big of a sample size as possible because general production and general results or grading in particular can really fluctuate in those small samples. So Witherspoon was fantastic last year on those 210 coverage snaps. He was really good as a rookie in 2017, good solid grade. The 2 years in between, 18 and 19, over 400 coverage snaps, he was not as good. So it kind of lands in the middle. It's very Sidney Jones-esque as far as what his actual production has been and and probably where his expectations are. The intriguing part about Witherspoon is 6'2", runs well, athletic, and I know you didn't always see that. I mean, it's about covering. It's not about your speed and all that stuff. He got beat a few times in the preseason here, but he has the tools to develop. And again, it's another. Seattle has a whole bunch of these low risk type of plays. It's unexciting because it really brings. There's a lot of unknown here with Witherspoon, with the Sidney Jones, even with the DJ Reed. So it'll be an interesting season, I think, for Seattle, but the potential is certainly there with all of these guys because they've all played some pretty good football at certain points in their careers.
Steve Palazzolo, Pro Football Focus, PFF.com. You can subscribe there, and if you're a football fan, you've got to be subscribing to PFF, PFF.com. This year brought to you by our good friends at No Lie Brewing, No Lie Brew House. They're located on the Spokane River. Again, we'll be there 1 to 3 on Friday. Hope to see some folks, if you're listening on the iHeartRadio app on the east side of the state, swing on by, say hello on Friday afternoon. I'm going to ask an overall defensive question because I'm not going to go through every player, but one other specific player I want to hit on before I kind of get your overall thoughts on, now that we kind of look at Seattle's defense and what we're looking at, and that would be Quandre Diggs. He is holding in / whatever he's doing, his stand-in, kind of he's taking over the role that was previously held by Jamal Adams in the secondary, watching practice in sweats with a jersey on. It's
an official position now.
God, it is, man. What and Dwayne Brown the same way. With Quandre Diggs, you guys had him ranked 52nd out of 94 safeties last season, yet he was a Pro Bowler. He was really good against the run, according to PFF. Not so good in coverage. Just a thought on where Quandre Diggs, in your mind, just overall, where does Quandre Diggs stack up with other safeties around the NFL?
I think he's a solid, probably slightly above average safety. And again, last year he had 5 interceptions, 4 pass breakups. A lot of times, postseason awards, you take 1,100 snaps and you boil it down to those 9 plays, and you say, oh look, he made some plays, right? Or he had a bunch of tackles, right? So for us, grading every single player on every play, when guys are out of position or they miss tackles or they bust a coverage or get beat or whatever it might be, all that stuff gets added in there as well. So I think he's a solid player. He can make plays on the ball. I think he's been, just a good, solid free safety. That is what he is. But the grades have fluctuated just a little bit over these last couple of years. They do land probably to that right above average mark, though, when you're projecting him going forward.
I'm going to ask Kevin something real quick because I think what you said there was really important. He had a lot of interceptions last season. Those are like pop plays, right? They're like plays, and then Kevin and I have talked about this, Steve, on the air a lot, just from being out at camp. I've been watching. He is a really popular player. I wonder if, I'm thinking out loud, I wonder if you have a guy that has maybe an inflated sense of who and what he is. Interceptions make, kind of puff your chest out as a DB, popular guy in the locker room. His buddy Jamal held out. Kevin, do you see where I'm tracking here? I listened to Steve break that down. We have a pretty good safety, but not a guy that that thinks he should be holding in right.
So you're saying if we maybe turned those interceptions and maybe turned that key and turned it into sacks and talked about just 9 specific plays where something significant happened, and all of a sudden we think that's the value of a player? Is that what you're saying?
Steve, are we talking about Jamal Adams here?
There might be some elements there. Like any of those back 7 players, it's fascinating. Linebackers, he had 100 tackles and it's 4 sacks and 2 picks, and it looks great, but there's so much more to the position than those few splash plays.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Not every tackle is made the same. We've talked about that. I mean, God bless him, he's out for the season. Ben Burke-Irvin, I mean, he was a tackling machine in the first preseason game like he was in college, but most of those times you see it 8 yards down the field and you see the nameplate. Like, that's not the same as a Bobby Wagner meeting you in the gap, right? It's a little different. Not all tackles are created the same. Overall, I look at this defense. Just your quick thoughts. I don't think there's any surprises in what they did roster-wise. The defensive line, I think we feel is deeper with guys like Hyder, Dunlap all season. They bring in Al Woods. Just a quick thought from you as far as PFF is concerned on the Seahawks defense.
Yeah, I think it's. I don't want to use the word volatile, but I think it can go either way. I think a lot of pressures on the coaches to fit the pieces in here. I look at that secondary that we just discussed. Again, all of those players have played good football at various points in their career. How are they going to be deployed? How is Jamal going to be deployed this year? Are they going to be a blitz-heavy team like they were at times last year? They'll have to be if some pass rushers don't step up. So I'm looking at this as a unit. I think there's going to be a big trickle-down effect if they don't get more from Carlos Dunlap and Darrell Taylor and some of the Alton Robinson and the guys that they've drafted over the last couple of years. If they can't get after the quarterback more efficiently, see how creative they get. They've got some good, solid pieces, but I can't wait to see how those pieces fit in because I think the coaches have some work to do to pull it all together.
And that's a key thing, though. Like we always talk about that, and we'll talk about that throughout the year. It's not just the sack numbers; it's the efficiency and how many times. And Steve's talked about that so many times. Steve Palazzolo, PFF. Offense, no big surprises. Although what you and I thought might happen never came to fruition. They're going to keep Damian Lewis at guard. He's at left guard. We assume next to Dwayne Brown when he decides he's going to actually decide to play. We think that Kyle Fuller is going to be the center over Ethan Posick, Gabe Jackson, and Brandon Shell, your offensive line, and then you've got Wilson and Carson, the two elite receivers. Overall thoughts on this offense?
Yeah, I can't wait to see how the scheme looks. And I know during the preseason, as I was watching them the other night very closely, going through the plays, and I was like, man, there are a lot of opportunities for running backs in this offense. And I don't know if that was just the Mannionization of the offense. I don't know if that was just a Mannion thing. But Geno was doing it too. I mean, the Seahawks threw to backs. The third highest percentage of their targets this preseason went to running backs. And that's one of those things I'm wondering is having answers beyond DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Of course, having Dwayne Eskridge drafted there. I think that was a part. I keep saying I think they want to have a more horizontal passing attack than what they've had, just to add that flexibility. So I can't wait to see all that. But you've got that core, right? You've got Russ, you've got DK, you have Tyler Lockett. I think the offensive line is going to be okay as far as pass pro goes, just like they were last year. I'm interested to see what they think, where the third option comes from beyond the receivers. Is it the backfield as a whole? Is it Gerald Everett trying to get him in space in this offense? Is it Eskridge? Do they try to get a little bit more horizontal and work the underneath game? So that's what I can't wait to see is just what this offense looks like. But the pieces, of course, are in place to have one of the league's best.
I just loved what I saw. I mean, you saw a glimpse of Eskridge. Eskridge went up high on the one pass play. Geno kind of went a little high on it, made a great snap. I mean, just a great ball skill. High point of that ball is beautiful play by him. His ability to go, basically east to west, west to east. I mean, it was kind of nice to see him go, sideways a little bit. And then, you can get vertical in terms of the other side of things. I'm excited to watch him play. I would guess, Steve, that third option is going to be a different guy every game. It might be Carson, it might be DJ Dallas, it might be Alex Collins, it might be Gerald Everett, it might be D. Eskridge. I think it feels like they have more weapons than they had a year ago.
Yeah, and that's okay. I mean, the thing I say repeatedly about the NFL is having options, right? It's having answers to what defenses throw at you. And I'll keep coming back to the Rams took away the deep ball because that's what they did. They took the deep ball away better than any team in the NFL. And when a team does that, if they take away your 1 and 2, you got to have 3, 4, and 5 ready. Or you have to have the run game ready. You have to have answers to what the defense throws at you. So it does look like Seattle at least has the pieces to be a little bit more well-rounded this year.
Well, Steve, I'm excited about this. I'm excited to talk to you every week this year. It's going to be a lot of fun. It really was a blast last year. I think we learned a lot. I know I learned a lot having you on every week, and PFF is go-to for me right now, and I hope it is for everybody else. I'll let you go ahead and pump up the website, including what you got going on for fantasy football, because there are drafts aplenty taking place right now.
Yeah, we have a great deal going, actually. 30% off all of our subscriptions using Kickoff30, the promo code Kickoff30. So you can get all of our fantasy tools for as little as $7, and it's just what I use to go draft. Just check out our rankings and go. So it's all at pff.com.
It is our good friend, Steve Palazzolo, pff.com, and we will be talking to Steve every Wednesday throughout the season right here on 950 KGR, brought to you by No Lie Brewing. Steve will talk to you in a week's time, and we'll preview the Colts and the Hawks next Wednesday.
Sure, you may be able to hear just how crispy the McDonald's Crispy Juicy Tender Chicken Sandwich is, but that's just the beginning. The full Crispy Juicy Tender experience comes after you take your first bite. But why stop there? Order ahead on the app and get medium fries and soft drink for free. Now that's a deal that tastes even better than it sounds.
Valid 8/30 to 9/19, 10/11 to 10/31, and 11/22 to 12/12/21. Valid one time per week. McDonald's app download and registration required.